Hey there, and welcome to another episode of Intrinsic Motivation from a Homie's Perspective. This is Hamza, and happy 2021 to everyone. And thanks for all the feedback that I've been hearing from you guys from over the last couple of months. We did have a little hiatus, but now we are back in the saddle. And without further ado, our guest today is going to talk about Almanac Astrology. I'm really excited about hearing about this subject matter because it seems like there's no end or there's no valley of reaching into the depths of astrology. And to talk about the almanac and how that relates to astrology is going to be even better. And since I don't know about it, I went out and got a guest to talk about it. And a little bit about her bio, it says that if you're ready to be seen, want to feel better about yourself, and grow your life or business, then your visit here is no accident. Your date, time, and place of birth make up your personal astrology and are your unique map for moving fluidly through the world. Emotional trials as well as periods of growth can be explained, and the answers are available to you when you apply astrology strategically. And it doesn't have to be hard or confusing. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome the guest author and coach, Tam Vayu. Welcome to the podcast, Tam.
Hamza, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, and for me, we usually go with tomato or tomato, and instead of Hamza, it's Hamza.
Oh, didn't I say Hamza? I'm sure that I did. Sorry about that.
No worries at all. And yes, welcome to the podcast. And for sure, let's jump right into it because we've passed the first month. We're still alive. A lot went on at the beginning of January, and we cannot say that there was no hiccups in 2020. And so a lot of people are kind of grappling out there and looking at the new normal, or what do we do to thrive in any environment. And it seems like using this, your strategy of an almanac astrology seems like the way to go.
I couldn't disagree with that. So for people who don't know, what I have here is a book called The Energy Almanac. So we're not talking about the old Farmer's Almanac, because these are two different things. The Energy Almanac is a very, what I would call, Age of Aquarius annual publication that, instead of growing plants and, garden material, we're growing people. So the old Farmer's Almanac, you'll remember, was all about when do we put the seeds in, when do we nurture them, when do we reap our harvest. This is about growing people and helping people to understand which energies are at play and how to sort of maneuver within those energies. That's what the Energy Almanac is about. And so this book is actually 52 weekly astrology predictions that affect the world, the planet. So what is your sign, by the way, Hamza?
I and my twin sister are Cancers.
You're both Cancer. That's nice. Okay. So you're a Cancer. I'm on this call. I'm a sun sign Virgo, but the content inside of the Energy Almanac is for every single zodiac sign. And it's not broken down by, if you're a Cancer, then this, and this. No, this is the underlying energy for the planet. So it's really a guidebook of what's going on astrologically that you can use to sort of plan your year.
Sure, and I like that you made it simple, because I know some other people that I've spoken with, we kind of get into the weeds, and you had just asked me about my sun sign, and then, what's my moon sign, what's my rising sign, and does that all come into play is my first question. The second part of that is your Energy Almanac working congruently with the Farmer's Almanac? For example, last week we had a big wolf moon. Are you using these almanacs together?
So first, to answer your first question, which is about, is my rising sign and my moon sign relevant? Well, sure, it's relevant in your personal world. However, it isn't relevant inside of the Energy Almanac. So there's this leg of astrology called mundane astrology, and it's about the information relative to the world and the workings of the world. For an example, the sun in mundane astrology represents world leaders, presidents, prime ministers, people like that. So in traditional astrology, Western astrology, the sun represents your ego and your personality. So again, the Energy Almanac is dealing with really mostly the mundane world. So it's going to tell you, when is big business going to change? Well, hello, 2020. Mm-hmm. When is government going to shift? Hello, 2020. Pluto inside of Capricorn. We saw that coming a mile away last year. So what we're trying to tell you are these are influences the world is going to feel. Be ready to move and shake with it. Yeah, there are personal planets that are close to us that we feel. We talk about those in the book as well. But the book is for the overall underlying, almost subconscious energies that are in play. Now, is it relative to the Old Farmer's Almanac? In a kind of way, in that we talk about the moons, the wolf moon that you just talked about. We talked about the full moon that it was and what it meant and all of that. We have a lot of moon information in the book, and it is similar. They run side by side, but again, that was about growing plants. I'm about growing people.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when you talk about the moon, you talk about mundane astrology and working with the world. Before 2020 and before going through what we collectively went through last year, it felt like, at least from a business standpoint, that every country was its own entity and that we all weren't on the same page. And it seems like over the past year, there were some rumblings before that, but it seems like we're all collectively trying to overcome not only the pandemic, but getting some sense of normalcy. What does that mean as far as automation or working with artificial intelligence? My old job of doing something for 50 years, is that still viable? So would your Energy Almanac work for someone here? I'm in Atlanta. Would it work for someone that is in Nova Scotia right now?
Oh, absolutely. We have readers all across the world with this book. Absolutely. The energies are universal. When you think of, we'll say, the planet Jupiter, it's huge, right? It is a gigantic ball of consciousness. It is a ball of light and of energy, and it resonates a vibration that is consciousness. This consciousness comes over every human being on the tiny little planet that is called Earth. And so you are feeling the effects of Jupiter inside of whichever zodiac sign it currently would be in. Last year, Jupiter was in Capricorn. This year, it's interesting to me that you just mentioned artificial intelligence. This year, Jupiter is inside of Aquarius, which rules the internet. It rules invisible waves, so it rules technology, artificial intelligence. It's about innovation. So Jupiter expands everything it's near. It magnifies things. It's an abundance of everything. So everything Aquarius is going to grow this over the next little while. Mm-hmm. So Jupiter, as big as it is influencing our planet and the people on it.
So it didn't really surprise you when, last week here in the States, there was a lot of noise about Wall Street and David and Goliath. And without the technology, there wouldn't have been that small vibration of the non-traditional brokers and what have you trying to short stocks and what have you. So I guess since Jupiter is in Aquarius, we're going to have that as a theme this year, would you say?
Well, there's a lot going on in Aquarius this year, a lot. So it's not only Jupiter. We have Saturn inside of Aquarius. Saturn is the lesson giver. Saturn comes in and helps us understand hurdles. It's kind of, I call Saturn the cosmic thumb. It presses down on us, forces us to apply discipline, have some boundaries, use self-authority. Saturn inside of Aquarius, which I should mention also rules groups of people. Saturn's going to have its effect as well. There's this like push and pull between Jupiter and Saturn. We have, as you and I are having this conversation, we also have the Sun inside of Aquarius. We have Mercury, our thinking mind, inside of Aquarius. We also have Venus, which is our love and our relationships, inside of Aquarius. There's tons of Aquarius energy going on that we have to concern ourselves with. And remember that Aquarius really is the rebel. It's that I'm rebel with a cause. I want to help more people. They're always seeking freedom. This whole Wall Street hiccup, that's kind of a lousy word for what happened, but the Wall Street thing that happened, wasn't there some rebellious energy there? Think about that. Think about the players in the Reddit side. They're extremely rebellious. They want the freedom, very Aquarius, to make their own choices with their money. And what does the stock market represent but the old energy of Capricorn that we just came through at the end of December? So that old, like, I'm going to stay here and do it this way, Wall Street, just bumped up against artificial intelligence seeking freedom and being rebellious. Like, that is so astrologically nuanced, it's not even funny.
Yeah, I mean, it was only, thankfully, in some circles, there's only 31 days in a month. And at the beginning of January, we had more of a rebellion never seen before in over 100 years with the Capitol, which I would say is the same energy. And it was like, Happy New Year, let's begin this rebellion.
It's a very revolutionary energy that we are in. And it's a running theme. It is a running theme for the year ahead. What's great when you have a guidebook like the Energy Almanac, you know how to be prepared. I got an email today from somebody who said, I read the Almanac on Sunday, and they said it would be a tense month and to watch for bumps early in the week. She goes, knowing that that was going to happen, when it finally hit the fan, all I did was take a deep breath and go use my mindset tools. I get those emails all the time because knowledge is power. Knowing ahead of time that we have a big financial hiccup coming mid-February, hint, hint, you can plan for it.
Now, I have a question about planning. Without quotations, I was going to say planning, but
air quotes.
Air quotes. But what comes to mind is, because I believe we're in the middle of it now, is the Mercury retrograde. And you hear about that, and, oh, no, hide under your bed because it's Mercury retrograde. And then there's others that say, you know what, Mercury, I'm not going to let that influence me. How much does it matter of us actually paying attention